Hello, and welcome to Breast Cancer Conversations, a podcast brought to you by survivingbreastcancer.org. I am Laura Carfing, breast cancer survivor and founder of survivingbreastcancer.org, a nonprofit organization providing community, education, and resources to empower those diagnosed with breast cancer and their caregivers from day one and beyond. Hello, my friends. We have teamed up with Dr. Jandy Schwartz from the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center and Dr. Carol Weaver, PhD in English and Literature, to offer our newest program, our Breast Cancer Book Club. Now, just like everything we do, this is not your typical average book club. We are intentionally reading books across all genres and all topics except for cancer. Cancer plays a large enough role in our lives. This Breast Cancer Book Club is for those of us diagnosed with breast cancer, looking to connect with others in the community over the commonalities such as reading, discussion, and losing ourselves in a good read. We recently read the book A Most Beautiful Thing by Arshay Cooper. Today's podcast captures Mr. Arshay Cooper's surprise guest appearance on our virtual book club discussion, where we were fortunate enough to ask him a few questions. Arshay, thank you so much for joining us today. You are a light of inspiration and hope, and it is a true honor to have you as a guest. Thank you, Jandy and Carol, for creating the questions and moderating the interview. And if you're interested in finding out more information about our book club, check out our website, survivingbreastcancer.org, and under the tab Events, Webinars, and Programs, you'll see a drop-down for our Breast Cancer Book Club. Let's take it away. Welcome to the conversation.
And I think I just saw Arshay pop up.
Yeah, I'm here. What's up, everybody?
Oh my
Welcome!
God. Arshay,
Wow.
thank you so
Hey.
much for joining.
Yeah,
Hey.
drum roll, please. So our book club did not know you were coming, and we were keeping this under wraps for the
Yeah.
longest time. So it's such an honor to have you join us
Great.
this morning.
Thank
Wow.
you.
It's
Thank
so
you.
crazy. Like I just watched you last night.
Yeah. I'm super excited to be with you guys.
Welcome, everyone. I know we're going to get some people still chiming in and logging on. I know it always takes a good 5 minutes for everyone to get the video and audio connected in this COVID day and age. But to kick things off, I'm Laura Carfing, the founder and breast cancer survivor of survivingbreastcancer.org. And so for Arshay's benefit, we are a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to supporting those diagnosed with breast cancer and their caregivers and families, really from day one through and beyond, because we know a cancer diagnosis doesn't just end when treatment ends. It's something that we're constantly managing, through survivorship, through thrivership, and even years after. And we were connected, fortunately enough, with Dr. Jandy Schwartz from UPMC in Pittsburgh. And she had this brilliant idea of creating a book club to really take our mind off of the day-to-day of cancer. This is not your typical book club. This is not your typical, we're going to read about cancer survivors, etc. We're here to have fun, explore various genres, and then also bring the community together where, yes, cancer connects us all, but at the same time, we all have different hobbies, different things that we enjoy doing. And we also partnered with Dr. Carol Weaver as well, who's joining us, whose background is a PhD in literature.
Yes.
And she is wonderful to kind of help us navigate the literature. And so it is such an honor and wonderful surprise to our book club members to have the author of this book that we all just devoured and loved. So Arshay Cooper, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all for having me. Thank you for reading the book. Thank you, Jandy, for showing a lot of love on Instagram. So appreciate it. So super excited to be with you all again. I think everyone read the book and possibly saw the film, right?
Yes.
Arshay, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jandy. We've been talking a lot online, I know. Really, really appreciate it. We are so thrilled that you are here joining us. And this is actually, you were our first book club pick. And as soon as I read your book, I knew that I wanted it to be the first pick for our book club, just the struggles you went through. I think parallel a lot of the challenges the breast cancer patients face, and even our survivors, and looking forward to the future. So I'd love to ask you a few questions if that's okay.
Yes, of course.
Wonderful. So we so much enjoyed your book. We all devoured it, got through it so quick. What moved you to actually sit down and write the book and write about your experience?
Yeah, it was, I was a chef for a long time. I was a culinary instructor after traveling for a while being a chef. And when I started working in a school in Brooklyn in the Marcy Projects as an instructor, a lot of young people who grew up like I did had all these questions on, what's the roadmap to success, right? And they just shared so many different stories, and their mothers were on drugs, and mothers were even murdered, and it's just so many stories. And I formed this program with all those young guys, and I started to see them succeed and do a lot better. And and then I went back home to Chicago and spoke at a school and got the same exact questions that these young people had, just on doing a speaking engagement. And that's when I said to myself, I don't know anything about writing a book, but I feel like that this message about me and my brothers that were on a team should be out there to the world. And I got a hotel room, locked myself in a hotel room for 1 week, and I'm talking about maybe watch 1,000 videos on how to write a memoir and how to start, and all these great, really mentored by all these great authors just through YouTube. And then I was like, all right, I'm ready to start writing. And it's the writing process has been therapy for me to just kind of, let go and release some of those things that I've been holding in for so long and for so many years. And it was beautiful, and to be able to connect with the guys and talk about those stories again, and talk to my mother about some of those things that I experienced as a kid. So it was actually healing for all of us. It was great for all of us to get back and kind of talk through those things.
That's wonderful.
Wow.
How long did it actually take you to write the book itself? And are there any fun bumps you hit along the road or fun stories from your time trying to write it?
Yeah, it took, on and off, 2 years, that I would write, and it was great. And there was many times where I was like, I can't continue to talk about this no more. And I close my laptop and then I wouldn't visit it for a couple months. And then I would see something or watch a movie and be inspired and then go back to it, And I think the fun part was really just kind of calling everybody, calling Grace, talking to everybody and revisiting these events and meeting with the guys again and getting back on the water just for that feeling, right? It's trying to remember what it felt like, the pain, the therapy and all those things. That was the fun part, just hanging out with the guys. And again, it was, there's certain things in your life, like a bad breakup where you say, I never want to relive that again, but writing this book was reliving all those things again. You had to put yourself there. But the lives that have changed, the amount of messages from young people, from people from Harvard class of 67 who was this rich billionaire, to a police officer, to teachers who have all learned something and all want to do something now or understand, right? Sometimes we look at the media and we hear about Chicago and they give you the eyesight, but without the insight, right? And so those messages keeps me going.
That's so great. I love hearing that. Your story has just touched so many people and continues to do so. And it's so thrilling and appropriate that A Most Beautiful Thing is now a documentary. I think a good number of us have all watched it, and it was such a great addition to your story. How did the documentary even happen? And can you talk a little bit about what filming it, especially in the times we're in today, was like?
Yeah, it's Rowan teaches you to take risk and kind of go after it, right? And I have always lived my life like that. And after writing the book, I was like, hey, people say it needs to be a film. So and I'm a big fan of documentaries, so I was like, I'll go the documentary route first. And so I went on Twitter tweeting everyone, hey, read this book. It should be a doc, right? and no one responded, and I got a message a couple months later from this Olympic rower who's a filmmaker who had done a lot of great films. And she was like, hey, just read your book. It was awesome. And I looked up her work and I was like, oh gosh, she was a rower. She'd be great. And I remember messaging her and said, hey, I would love to do a doc. She was like, you had me at, and I was like, and so we talked on the phone, but I was like, I feel like you need to come to Chicago. And so me and Alvin took her on a ride along, and I was like, usually, she's like, I'm all in. I was like, usually we go for Morgan Freeman, but I want Common to narrate this film. So let's try to go for Common. And it was all your own. And I think for her, it was she's a rower. So she's like, hey, she believed in access and opportunity for everyone to be a part of this great sport. But, it was the story of our life in the 90s and the coaches. And I remember it seemed well, but I remember going home and sketching a whole outline. And I was like, less coaches, we need the mothers. We need a comeback race. We need to come back and race and show young people that we can do it. And then even the part with the cops, it wasn't until like halfway through the whole filming process, it wasn't even an outline. I was like, I want to go a different direction with this, right? And, we can talk more about that if you have questions about that. But that's kind of how the process worked.
Wow, that's wonderful. I love hearing how it evolved as you went. I mean, that's so true with, I think, a lot of our experiences, that what you start out thinking might not be the finished product, and you kind of adapt and change along the way to make things fit. So that's wonderful to hear that. One more question I have for you before maybe we open it up to hear what the group has to say. What are the next steps for you? Are you thinking about another book, another film?
Yeah, so there's a few things. So you know what? There's a couple feature film opportunities and one TV series opportunity. So we're deciding on that, right? Pookie and the guys are like, how much money we getting? So that's going to take a while to kind of get through that. So that is awesome. We are working with members of Congress now around mental health and trauma in Chicago. The members of Congress held a virtual event to watch the film, and me and the director and a few others are really, really spend a lot of time learning about trauma, intergenerational trauma, and mental health, especially at places like the West Side of Chicago. So now the members of Congress are really excited to work together on that. We started a Most Beautiful Thing Inclusion Fund, which we raised a lot of money in like a few months, which will bring growing into schools like Manley High School, but throughout the country. And so this year we're going to launch a few programs in Baltimore, Newark, Newburgh, New York, Stockton, California, and of course, continue to work with Chicago and possibly Minnesota. So that's some of the exciting things that are happening.
Wonderful. That is so exciting. I'm thrilled for you, and I can't wait to see what comes next. I think at this point, I'll turn it over to Laura and Dr. Carol and see what they have to say.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Arshay, thank you for the deep explanation about all of this. I have to share my little 15 minutes of fame. I am from Chicago originally. I'm now living in Boston, but reading your book, and I think we might be around the same age, or like in the 90s, in high school, etc. The Bulls, the three-peat, repeat, but everything you described, and this is a testament to people also in our book club, that your language and the way that you described like the underducks and the passage of the highways or the lagoons and rowing, like even I think you made a comment about like the language you call your friends, right? Like, what up, Joe? I was like, oh my God, that's so true. Like, that's what we did. And so it was just, I was in your book reliving the 90s in Chicago, and wanted to share with our book club members that, your writing is exceptional and vivid, and I really appreciate that. I know there's a couple comments and accolades in the chat as well that you could read, but I would love to open it up if there's anyone in our group that would like to ask Arshay a question as we are closing in on his 20 minutes of time this morning. If you want to unmute yourself. Any shy takers?
This is Marie Janot. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I really enjoyed the book, and I agree. This is a great message, and it shows how important mentors are, and also how important the individual, namely you, Arshay, are. And I'm wondering, is this a required reading, or can you put it on a reading list for students? I think all would benefit from reading it.
Yeah, good question. The publishers are working on that now. And public schools during COVID, the last thing on their list is trying to figure that out, right? But we are working hard, and they are so open to it, and we've been working at it, and not just for public schools, right? But I think for all students, no matter where they're from or ethnicity, I think this book will be important for all to read, and we're definitely pushing towards that.
Great, thanks.
It,
Dr. Carol Weaver?
it reminds me of a classic, a modern day Odyssey. Odysseus was a great soldier in the Homeric Wars, but what you go through is so inspiring, and the book is so accessible. I think Dr. Janot's suggestion is great because it really does show you what discipline and having a good mentor can do for you if your intention is so strong. And I think this would be a great TV series.
Yes.
Yeah, I think obviously Rowan changed my life. The experience with the water was just like beautiful, right? It was the mentor piece, but it was also the spiritual piece in the water. You go through a lot of trauma on the west side of Chicago, right? You experience a lot. You run for your life. You deal with a lot of different things. And basketball didn't work for me really because, it's a trash talking sport. And you hear things that adults and coaches say to you growing up, like you're garbage or you suck, you're never going to be good. And it triggers things in you and you want to fight, and I see it all the time. And for football, you have a coach that's like, knock them dead, and you're hurting each other, and then triggers a lot of trauma for young men. Not everyone, but for some. And for me, obviously, yes. But the fact that Rowan was no conflict, non-combative, right? And you pushed out there into open water. And the same survivor mode that tells you if you hear a gunshot, run, tells you in order to get back to the dock safely, you have to pull for each other. And to do that, you have to kind of shut up and listen, right? And you have the coach telling you to sit tall and breathe and telling you things like you belong here, you have a right to be here. And that's when the magic starts in the boat. And you build this magical connection that really takes over your emotions, your feeling, and is meditative. Some people meditate a half hour a day and completely change their lives, but to be out there 2 hours a day, downloading serenity, no police sirens, no gunshots, no bullying, and the sport is rhythmic, right? So it's a sport of healing, and then it becomes a sport of being competitive. It was a beautiful moment for all of us, and it still is. And and then the second part, just having coaches who know it's not about just fast boats, right? But being a great human and contributing to your community. And I think that the lesson I've learned from them that I take every day is that if you can just eliminate one dream, your dreams become bigger. I was speaking at Harlem before COVID, and I was asking every young person, what's your dream? And one kid was like, to eat at Chipotle. And I kind of thought he was kidding, right? But he wasn't. Like when I was young, I couldn't, if Chipotle was there, I wouldn't be able to afford Chipotle. And I remember telling the counselor, I was like, here's $20. You have to make sure he eats Chipotle. Because if he eats Chipotle, there's a new dream, right? It becomes bigger. The moment I went downtown, I'd never been out of town, I was like, I got to go out of town. And then when I went out of town, I was like, we need an overnight trip out of town, right? We went to Philly, and then we start moving faster. We have to race, right? So if every one of us can eliminate one dream from someone's life, their dream becomes bigger. And that's what I learned from the coaches.
Yes. Arshay, could you talk a little bit about teamwork? I think that was so profound. I have an old friend who's in his 80s, and he was a rower. And he says whenever he sees anybody who does this sport, he walks up to them and says what a wonderful period that was in his life so many years ago. But the teamwork seems to me to be really distinctive.
Yeah, it's understanding each other's weaknesses and strength. You're moving together at the same time without any timeouts, same level. No matter how tall you short, you somehow have to find the rhythm and move with each other. And that chemistry doesn't really happen just inside the boat, but outside of the boat, right? And that's one of the reasons I invited the cops out. The lessons I learned as a young kid is that in order to find alignment, you have to refocus the lens, right? And I didn't like Alvin at first. I didn't even want him on the team. But when I sat next to him on that bus and he was telling me, like, I don't fight only because I need help. And so I have to help others to do that, right? And I didn't think about it that way, right? He refocused my lens and there was alignment in the boat, right? That right there, that connection. Because if you're in a boat with him, if you don't like him, you're not going to want to really move with him. But when you can get to know each person individually, right, it helps you to find that connection, not only in the boat, but outside of the boat, right? And that's what I had to explain to the guys. I told them, the disconnect is not just between the different gangs, but also the Black community and the police officer. And I said, as a teacher, you will always forget some of your students, but as a student, you'll never forget your teacher. And we have an opportunity to be a teacher and to recast the narrative on Preston, who's one of the best entrepreneurs on the west side of Chicago, who hires high school seniors, boys and girls, to work and to pay for their prom and their graduations. Malcolm, who calls his son every 10 minutes, right? These are the things that these cops in our neighborhood has learned in 4 months of training and more than that, right? And so that teamwork is so important. I think Rowan does a really good job with allowing us to feel each other's weaknesses, pain, and finding chemistry inside the boat and outside of the boat.
Thank you. I think that's beautiful. I think one last question, and we talked a lot about teamwork and mentorship. Are you still in contact with your coaches and your mentors?
Yeah, with all of them. So Ken and Jenny divorced, but they both live in New York. I live in New York. So they have 4 kids though, and very close with all those kids. They all pretty much grown now almost, but very close with them. Coach Victor and Mark. All those coaches are great. So Mark, cool thing is that I started a program in Manhattan, a rowing program, and one of the kids who became the captain of my team, he was a kid who grew up. He slept on the floor all his life. There's 8 kids living in a 1-bedroom apartment, and he joined our team, and he was special. But he's rowing for Mark Mandel at Williams College. My coach.
Wow.
You know what I mean? It's just a beautiful thing, to send so many kids to college to row. But now we have to start this pipeline every year. We need to send a kid to Williams, right, to row. Mm-hmm. And but we're all still very close.
That's phenomenal.
Oh.
Thank you so much. I know we're coming up on the 20 minutes, so thank you so much for your time. But I'm wondering if we can get everyone to smile, if you wouldn't mind if we can take a screenshot with you, because like Jandy said, this is our, we met in November to announce your book. This is our first book club debrief. And so I think we just really raised the bar right here. So thank you. All right. So if everyone wants to smile, I'll grab a screenshot. 1, 2, 3. Smiling. Great. Thank you. And I'll be sure to tag people and send it along.
No, thank you all for having me. I really appreciate it. If you have more questions, you can friend me on Facebook or Instagram and follow you guys right back. And we have I don't know if Laura, you heard about Recovery on Water. Awesome program, rowing program in Chicago for breast cancer survivors. And we do a lot of work together. I don't know, there's a part in the film where we went to row and you saw all these women clapping. Those were the breast cancer survivors rowing club that we work really closely with in Chicago to just make it a better place through the sport of rowing.
Yeah.
So I feel a connection with you all and just understand that, just keep doing what you're doing and use your story to make an impact. And I think me and the guys use our stories, right? And we can't go and change it, but we know we can use it to bring hope. And
Absolutely.
I think that, as I'll end by saying that, for me, like looking at MLK, I don't think about his career as a preacher, but a person who brought hope to the world. And Harriet Tubman, whose career was a Union spy, but she's known for her freedom, right? And I mentioned like Gandhi, who's this attorney, right? But we all know him for bringing peace to the world. When we can represent something bigger than ourselves, right? In our career, and really tell the stories that lives in us and get it out there somehow, that it really brings forth change that we need like never before. And so again, thank you all. I appreciate it. And please, I'd love to be in touch with you all.
Thank you so much, Arshay.
Thank you, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. Talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Wow. That's awesome. Thank you.
So cool.
That was very, very cool.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you guys are the best Christmas gift.
Thank you for tuning in and listening to our podcast. If you would like to find out more about our organization and upcoming events and ways to connect, you can find out more by visiting our website at survivingbreastcancer.org. I would like to acknowledge that all of the information on our podcast is from personal experiences, and it is not a substitute for professional medical advice. You should always consult your medical care team. If you're looking for specific topics or would like to be a guest on our show, feel free to contact me directly at laura@survivingbreastcancer.org. And of course, we have a couple social media handles you can follow us at as well. For example, Surviving Breast Cancer Org, all one word, as well as our podcast specifically, Breast Cancer Conversations. Until next time, keep on thriving.